All right, so I suggest we kick it off because today I promised our speakers that my introduction will be super quick. First of all, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, great. Awesome. So yeah, I promised our speakers that I'm going to be super short and they will have enough time for their presentations. So I'll be as quick as possible. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining our CKAN Monthly Live number 14. As you know, I like to count them. I'll start with a disclaimer that this will be our last meetup for this year, because as you know, in December, everyone is on vacation, except for Santa Claus, of course. So we usually rest. So basically, this will be our last meetup, and then we'll see next year. So today we're going to be talking about the future of CKAN and the CKAN 3 product strategy. We have Alex Gostev on the call. As most of you know, since April, he's been working very hard on product strategy 3.0. And he's been trying to get input from various stakeholders. And now he's going to present some of his findings, and hopefully this will provoke a exciting discussion. Like the whole process is designed to be very inclusive because Alex wants to hear different points of view, opinions, and ideas. We are also going to have some updates on the Civic data ecosystem post project of the National Science Foundation. I think Joe wanted to mention something here, I'm not sure, but maybe you can add a bit later. So we have on the call Eleanor Mattern, right? Yeah. Who's co-principal investigators of Civic data ecosystem study at the University of Pittsburgh. And we also have Joe Natividad, who's the CEO of that here. So before I give them the mic, just few housekeeping items. I will drop the link to this presentation that you see and also to the meeting document in a second. You're very welcome to add your name, affiliation, what brings you to CKAN in the meeting doc. And also if you have suggestions for topics or you want to add something to the agenda, that's the right place. So the agenda for today is a bit different than what we usually have, and it will be a bit longer meetup, but I'm sure, yeah, it will be very interesting, so that shouldn't be a problem. So my introduction already needs to stop. Then we can have the Alex Gostev's presentation on CKAN Pathway 2.3. Then we can have a short Q&A session where we can discuss things. Then we can have the updates from the Civic data ecosystem with Eleanor. Then we can have a short Q&A session, and then we can have the closing. That's my suggestion. If you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand. Okay, we have Bob Gradek as well. I'll just make him a co-host in a second. So if you want to ask something, you can raise your hand and go ahead, or you can wait for the Q&A session. Am I missing something? Yeah, so I'll just drop the link to the presentation in a second. I'll just stop sharing my screen now. And Alex, you can go ahead.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Joanna, for the presentation. So I will start with that. I have 36 slides, but I will use your time wisely, I promise. So everything will be condensed. And basically, you will have a snapshot of the current status of basically the thoughts that we have around where to go, how these thoughts were formed, and a prompt for participate in the development, because the community is all we have, and it's incredible. Sharing my screen. Do you see the slide deck says CKAN 3 stakeholders research?
Just a second and wait.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now I see it.
Okay, great. So this is the first part. A quick recap on the research that was made. Then I will stop at a story, a visual representations of struggles for open source projects, and then CKAN 3.0 Pathways. So the research was global, different roles, public people, business people, integrators, end users, guys from Asia, US, Latin America, Europe, Central Europe, Eastern Europe. It was quite impressive in terms of how open contributions were. So I'd like to thank everybody who participated. As a result, we have a Miro board, which is a window into different perspectives analyzed and structured in a way that they can be consumable and actionable. This Miro board is open for everybody. I will drop a link, and it's in presentation as well. Topics that were mentioned were numerous, like you can see it from here. There were very specific ideas that were told, not only requests or say actionable stuff. Some things are more on a conceptual level, on the level of thinking. Then we have cards with specific requests. Each card has a set of tags. The blue number, the blue box with the white number is the participant number. Then what is the topic? Then what is the user group or customer group or target audience, or I mean audience. There are three of them: vendors, which are commercial entities that provide services, governments, and nonprofits, and individual contributors. Star means that the person represents a group of people which he works with, he serves. So basically, he represents a global perspective. This is basically a short guide on how to read the Miro board. Then requirements that were mentioned, or ideas that were mentioned several times, so basically more than 3, they got an A grade, so simple ABC prioritization based on amount of mentions. And this is how we can ensure that there are requirements that are set aside that were mentioned multiple times, and 3 mentions is around 10% of the sample who were talking about it. So if we would extrapolate, it means to me that these requirements can be a big deal for the big chunks of the community. Then, alongside with functional requirements, they were soft requirements, requirements regarding a need of developed branding, of explaining better, of working on communication, and on reach. Although CKAN is a big player, a big niche player in open data, if we would take a bigger market, there's still a huge gap into people to know that CKAN exists and what it can do. Conversations with developers shown that CKAN can do much more than it used for right now. And along with this, for open data and for metadata management, content management, it also can be much more known. The ideas, they are on yellow cards, negatives, red ones, positives, green ones. And the Miro board, it's the link. I will post the presentation and I will post the link as well. So it's accessible for everybody. Please get there check what it says, leave your comments. I'm welcoming you there. So the second story is about the challenges, kind of to surface them, to surface problems that we are fighting. So it's the 3D model of ancient city of Gdansk, medieval city of Gdansk. It's the city when I stopped and living right now. So it's a 3D model of what it was 1,000 years ago, and it looks quite good. So it's concise, it's built upon foundations, good foundations, and it provides a complete idea, their walls, buildings, etc. So if we would translate this into our product, it may be a vision, what we would like to have. We can have a plan based on this vision, and definitely it's something that can be in sales materials. Yeah, and there at this archaeological museum, they had a really cool thing. So when you enter the building, you get the 1 brick. So each visitor gets 1 brick with a ticket, and then somewhere along the museum, you were gluing the brick, and so all the visitors are building this castle, implementing this vision that was modeled at 3D, and it looked quite impressive from the first sight. But then when you look at the details, you can right away tell that with this quality of building, it's like, unfortunately, the idea is quite beautiful, but implementation not that great. And so I'm not making any implications about our code base. I think that what the core team does is to prevent this style of building from happening with PR checks and all this technology management that is there regarding contributions. But it's about surfacing the problems that we are fighting and taking a strategic approach into how to deal with them. And so there are 3 levels to take care of. It's a strategic layer, what I'm working on, forming product vision, and then we should have a task force to implement it, and understanding very well target audience for whom we are doing these changes. And ideally, the target audience is the whole community. So the whole community should benefit from what we're doing. So the approach, it looks like the approach should be rather generic and universal. But nevertheless, then goes the functional layer when we're working on UX, when we are checking quality of what is built. We're trying to simplify the product, quite important thing as well, not to stack up features within the core, and to be consistent with the way that we defined. And then the code base layer with the need of technical leadership and setting up cadence and delivery and make delivery predictable. And so we're coming to the main topic, which is where we can go with CKAN. I will start with principles because these are principles that were understood during the research and after the research was conducted. And these are so that CKAN core should be taken as a core with all the customizations, all the additional functionality that is needed by clients, by specific organization that wants spread open data. It should be done with extensions, with a specific customization. So we should not expand the core to cover side cases. That's quite important. I know it's a bit obvious, but still, I heard some tendencies to make the core go into a particular direction. So CKAN is for open data. It's for sharing. Although it can be used for use cases within the company where it's about restrictions, user roles, sharing data to a specific prioritized group and take control of who sees the data. It's not exactly the soul of CKAN. And so I don't see how the CKAN core can be developed in a way to serve closed data. The third principle would be that if we're doing updates for CKAN, we should understand who will benefit from them. There are several groups of stakeholders, and they have slightly different needs. If we would find the middle ground, that would be a huge success. Although, so the pathways could be that working with and increasing the current strength of the CKAN, which is about integration of CKAN into the data pipelines. So CKAN is not the best CMS out there currently, although it's the best for open data. And it's really, it serves the open data well. It's integrated with the systems globally. And so adding to strength of the CKAN would be a logical way to move on. Then we can work on extensions management. Then, I mean, it could be a different way. So working on customizations in order for them to be reusable. And so we're decreasing costs for customizing CKAN for a particular case. Community is a huge asset that CKAN has. I'm sure that I heard many times during the research, like 30% of respondents or 50% of respondents mentioned community as an important factor in why they are using CKAN and why they are basically made the decision to implement this system. And so everything that increases the size of the community, increases the engagement within the community, it serves CKAN, although it's not a direct product work. The research and the board that you might observe provides a very specific changes that are beneficial for particular stakeholders. And so what we can do is that we could work on these specific, well-outlined changes to provide. So basically, we know that we would provide value by this, and we can tackle them. Although it's definitely not a revolutionary change. It's definitely not specific strategy when we say no to some directions and yes to others. It could be a quite inclusive way in how to move on. And then a quite different strategy that could be taken to product development is that we are not adhering to a specific line of work or specific idea, but we're starting several ideas, implementations, and then we're making step for the implementation, for the idea that we trust the most. So it could be prioritization process based on available resources, sureness in that the result would deliver value, ability to measure result or to get feedback on it. And then, so basically that should be a low-hanging fruits from the start. But after each step, we are estimating if it was a positive change, if the actual impact happened, what would say the users of the feature. And then we're deciding either to pursue the initiative further or to move to another initiative. And so it could be a step-by-step process when we are jumping between different directions in order to find the direction where we know how to implement it at the needed level, and we're sure that a large portion of community gets the benefit out of it. I like this approach. I used it for commercial products building. It's an approach where you put experimentation within the process, and that's why I feel that it's quite cool from the value maximization perspective. The struggles of this approach is the roadmap. So you don't have the roadmap, you don't know what will be built in 6 months. So you know what you're building right now, and then you know what would be the alternatives for the next step. And this is basically how you operate. So it's quite agile and fluid. So in order to implement the strategy that we would pick, or pathway, or this approach with initiatives, it should be a task force. It should be a motivated effort into a particular direction. And so how can I help you is with, if you would like to contribute, I can align your contribution with findings of what community needs are. Meanwhile, as a contributor, aside of managing the process, my next areas of focus would be product communication. So I can contribute into creating content, into explaining how to use CKAN, into basically communicating everything we have and increasing the scale of this communication. Working on user acquisition, which means that it's a sort of a part of a research of the companies that haven't implemented CKAN or got there but haven't decided to start with CKAN, along with people who didn't know that CKAN is. And so that's a clear growth of the CKAN usage. I have several ideas on how to work on this. Did it before. Competitors user research and UX audit. Yeah, that's a pretty product jobs. And so please feel free to reach out to me with anything you have, contribution, idea, insight. Maybe you know anything about, maybe you love something in the other CMS or open data software, which CKAN would be nice to have. I'm super open and I'm here for you. Thank you very much. That's everything from me.
Thank you, Alex. All right, so let's do a Q&A session.
Can I just mention a couple of things, Joanna?
Yes, of course, go ahead.
Cool. So one of the things just coming off the back of Alex's presentations is there's an obvious question. So Alex is a product owner, but in an open source project, he doesn't actually control the resources. There's a lot of external contributors that managing their own time, might be working for different organizations. They might love to be able to work on certain things, but they can't actually vouch for how much effort they can contribute any month to month or week to week or day to day. So for the co-stewards and such and others in the community, the question becomes, how do we give Alex some resources? He can't just go to the tech team, for example, and say, I need everyone to spend 20 hours a week working on these things, and then I can help align your efforts towards outcomes. And we're doing it in a collaborative way, so it's not like a dictatorial process anyway. It's more, what would people like to contribute, and how can Alex help with their collaboration, either to the vision or to the aims or the strategy, or in concert with other people. So with all that going on, that's kind of just to sort of put an anchor to what Alex was just talking about, that how he's going to contribute into the future. Right now, we've got this backup position where he's going to become a contributor himself, and he's going to contribute in those 4 ways. But the forum by which, the likely forum by which we can help align people, there's already been a CKAN office hours that Alex and I have been running since April every week. It's Australian Eastern time at 4 p.m. Because I'm in Australia, which is about 6 a.m. I think for Alex, maybe 5 a.m. now. I think with the time zone changes. So we might revisit when that occurs, but that's a really easy forum to open up. It's in addition to the tech team calls. Tech team calls have a very set routine and agenda, and it's good business as usual. And we're not looking to upset or sort of sidetrack that. But for anyone who has time and wants to talk about some of this stuff, that's a really good forum. So I think after this, we'll post more details about that forum and open that up to more people, and have a lot of cross-pollination. And then finally, I just want to say the awesome work that Joel and Thibodeau's been doing, and the Pathways to Open Source Ecosystems grants that we're going to hear a little bit more about as well. That's just another way that we can start to maybe find resources for Alex. At this stage, it's about mapping things out as well. But in the future, I think there's an opportunity for CKAN to actively be finding grants, looking for funding opportunities, bringing together cohorts, whether it be in government or other vendors like Link Digital, Datopia, and other vendors, coming together as a cohort and putting resources together for sprints or code sprints. So these are all opportunities for us, and I think that's all part of the next step. That's what I wanted to add, Joanna. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth is asking for the office hours, if we can share them again.
Yes. So it's 4 p.m. Well, in the same way that you pump things, I'll put it in Twitter if that's easy, and I'll put it in Gitter as well. So Twitter and Gitter in the next couple of hours.
Okay, we can drop it in the chat as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So if anybody wants to ask something or wants to share any thoughts, you're welcome.
Links in the chat. So the presentation and the Miro board are there. I will figure out the meeting time and we'll send the link. That would be the next one.
All right, that's great. Yeah, if we don't have any other questions or things to be shared, we can move on to our next topic.
Actually, Joanna, I just have one quick question of Alex.
Great. Go ahead.
So Alex, you mentioned there were like 37 interviews across 17 countries or something along those lines, and they were anonymized, right? But do you have like a breakdown of the different cohorts, like who came from government, who were the vendors, even if they were anonymized? The breakdown is there.
Okay, so we have anonymized summaries published, and each summary has a title with who the person is and what is the background of this person. So going through summary to summary, I know it's not as particular list on this and this. Then each summary is broken down into pieces, and these pieces are marked from from which cohort was the person who asked for this requirement. This is how it's done. I can produce a separate list, like these are people from the government, these are developers, this. But does it make sense to categorize them in lists? Okay, it's a great idea. Thank you. I'll do it. We'll publish it. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, Dr. Jesper. We can go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Jesper Sidit. Yeah, I'm new to this kind of exchange, so I don't know if you've talked about this question. If you talked about the question in earlier meetings, but how specific are the plans for CKAN 3.0? I know a lot of federal states in Germany, I work for a federal state in Germany, are using CKAN for the open data portals, and we have some kind of, we're unsure how the development of CKAN will continue. So CKAN 3 is around for, yeah, I think in years, but do you have specific plans on how to, or when will CKAN 3 will be released?
Okay, yeah, I can answer. Thanks for the question. So in order to have a roadmap, we should have a strategy. In order to have a strategy, we should have a vision. And basically, we have it implicitly. I mean, explicitly, I'm sorry. Yeah, so it's not stated, but we kind of have an idea where the product goes, and it goes big. It's on the shoulders of the core team and the contributors of to the CKAN. And mostly it goes into solving specific issues which are understood by team members and brought in. So the idea is to form a coherent direction, to be able to answer your question specifically and precisely after several months. So right now, we are looking for forming a task team in order to have this particular direction. Yeah, please, Adria, you definitely can speak better on the core team specifics.
Yeah, sorry. The only thing I want to make clear is that we're not dropping everything just to focus on 3.0 by any stretch. So the 2.0 line still ongoing development. Just today or this week, we have started the process of releasing the next version, which is 2.10, which is going to be a fantastic release with a lot of improvements over the current one. And we have no plans of just parking this to focus on anything else. So we still need to decide whether 3.0, the form it will happen, if it will be like a hard fork, or it will gradually be 2.0 until we just call it 3.0. But to all intents and purposes, it's business as usual in terms of releases. So if anyone is planning on upgrading their instance, they should plan on doing it on the next stable release, which is going to be 2.10. It will be out hopefully on end of December or January.
Okay,
That was
great.
it, sorry.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or things? If not, we can proceed. So you have 15 seconds to decide. And I'm aware of time, so yeah. Okay, so feel free to drop your questions and thoughts in the chat if something comes up, yeah. And now we can proceed with our next topic. Probably most of you know that earlier this year, the US National Science Foundation launched a funding program, which is called Pathways to enable open source ecosystems. And its aim is to support open source technologies. So a team which is composed by principal investigators at the University of Pittsburgh and that here were awarded the funding. And the idea is to develop a plan to strengthen the CKAN ecosystem. So now we have here Bob Gradek and Eleanor and also Joe, so they can tell us more about the project.
Thanks, Johanna. And I apologize, I got disconnected briefly, so I don't have the ability to share my slides. I don't know if you can reassign me.
Yeah, just one second.
Apologies.
No, that's fine, no problem. Just 1 second. Okay, should be done now.
Okay.
Let me know if it works okay.
Okay. So Bob, I'll turn it over to you to begin.
Yeah, so this, so just a check on if you can hear me through the, okay, so I'm dealing with hotel Wi-Fi right now.
Yeah,
so this,
everything's fine.
yeah, we saw this opportunity pop up from NSF, and since, going back on our history of working with Joel and Sammy at Dat here and all the places that they've been before in setting up our whole open data initiative here in Pittsburgh, the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center, I reached out and just thought like, oh, this might be an opportunity to bring some resources to CKAN, from the U.S. federal government. So I guess like Nora, we can probably move into the slide. So we formed a project team for this proposal. And so it consists of our team at the University of Pittsburgh that manages the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center. So myself, Liz Monk, Ross Riley, Steve Saylor, and David Walker. Joel and Sammy of Dat here are also on the team. And then our friend Nora Mattern, who's a colleague at the School of Computing and Information and a colleague of ours on a Civic switchboard project, which is all about libraries' role for open data, library workers' roles in open data ecosystems. So it's really nice to be able to bring Nora back into another project too, because we work together an awful lot.
Thanks, Bob. And as was already mentioned, this project is supported by the National Science Foundation here in the US. It's part of a new funding program that was just launched that focuses on supporting what the NSF has framed as high impact open source ecosystems. And part of the application involved articulating the impact. And I think, the NSF, which is really committed to open data in relation to open research data, really saw the importance of exploring the CKAN open source ecosystem. This is there are two phases for this particular funding opportunity. Phase 1 is really exploratory, exploring the existing ecosystem, and also exploring, learning from folks who are part of this ecosystem, how this ecosystem can be strengthened, sustained, moving forward. The second phase, which is a larger funding opportunity, focuses on implementing the plan built in phase 1.
Yeah, and that grant opportunity is like $1.5 million US. So I think like what we want to do is position this ecosystem for a competitive proposal for that piece of it, because that's much bigger money and can help to sustain and set up the right infrastructures for CKAN. We're a CKAN user, so I think like we definitely would love to see, the product get even stronger and the ecosystem become more resilient too. So yeah, and just like some of the vision things that we put in the proposal, and I think like we really had to make it a compelling, important. Trying to find the language here at 5 a.m. But so we laid out some of the vision because it was really important that this be like an impactful opportunity and an impactful piece of open source software, which it is. And so this is what really sold the proposal to NSF and the review committee. Openness is a value. We talked a lot about data.gov here in the US, talking about the importance of the community owning the data infrastructure and not a corporation. And some of the other visions I think that we laid out in the proposal too that are going to guide this work, making sure that the burden of developing and maintaining the product are shared equitably across the ecosystem. We have a plan for integrating product innovations with the code base. Feedback from the user community can inform the product roadmap and like building a process for that. That's kind of the world that I live in is more in the user community. Thinking about how we can adapt the product to changes in the open data landscape and business models, and making sure that there are enough resources for everybody here to be able to maintain that ecosystem. So that's kind of like the vision that we put forward.
So there are two stages to the project that we articulated for the NSF application, with the first stage really exploratory, building an understanding of the landscape, the roles, the players involved in stewarding and supporting and using CKAN. And the second phase will move into some sense making, really building an understanding of what we learned through this first ecosystem discovery phase. And the sense making, as Bob will share, we hope will really engage you. Well, both phases will engage you, but we'll really look forward to engagement as we work through what we learn about the ecosystem through some interviews, focus groups, and more.
Yeah, and so I think like we're transitioning now into phase one. So the first hidden phase was just like getting our act together and making sure that we could carve out enough time to work on the project and putting a lot of other projects to bed, or at least getting them into a better shape so we could start to focus on this. And so this is where we are right now, just kind of ecosystem discovery. And so, we want to map out some of the processes in the ecosystem, and you can see a list there. I don't necessarily need to read them, but just to develop a shared understanding. And we really see an opportunity to build on the work that's already been done around CKAN 3.0. With presentation that Alex made was really great. We want to build on that. Just want to know, as we go through, we'll start to talk to you about some of the processes and kind of like draw pictures of them and make sure that we're all on the same page just in terms of how things work. Because I think that shared understanding is an important thing to develop right up front. And then we also want to start to build lists of people in the ecosystem that we can engage in different ways. And we're thinking about the stewards, contributors to the code, systems integrators or companies that work with CKAN in their work, and then organizations that have adopted CKAN as a solution or even could adopt CKAN as a solution. And so these are going to be just lists of roadmaps for our conversations. And one of the first things that we'll ask you to do is just kind of help us build this list of members of the ecosystem so that we can engage people in different ways. And so these are just some questions that we have. You can probably put it in the either the notes. I don't know if the notes doc or the chat is the best place for this, but I'd say the notes doc so we can capture that.
The notes doc, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we just want to know what questions you have about the CKAN ecosystem, and what kind of questions should we be asking as we get rolling on this?
And as we mentioned, there are two phases that we're really conceptualizing with this first ecosystem discovery that will engage you as we work through building an understanding of the processes within this ecosystem, the folks who are part of this ecosystem. Following this discovery phase, will very much be communicating with you, and we'll draw lessons from it. And we hope you might engage with us through that sense-making stage.
Yeah, and we're talking about CKAN Con is bringing that back in the spring or summer as a way to kind of present things back and have a conversation about, like, what do you think it means and what direction could we take as from these findings. So making it a collaborative process is what we really want to do. And the strategy that we laid out in the proposal, we highlighted these elements: governance model, plan for engaging contributors, managing and maintaining code contributions. I think there's a lot of work that's already been done on this. We just saw a little bit earlier. you know, strategies for increasing adoption and relevance of CKAN. I think like that's an area where we want to talk to our external partners around open data and different communities of practice, and then, you know, sustainability strategy too. So if we get this strategy in place and we're competitive in round 2, it looks like there'll be a round 2, you know, that could really net a lot of implementation funding in the, you know, to the tune of 1.5 million.
So we do have a website. It's brand new. There's not a whole lot there just yet, but we'd like to point you to that. It's in the slides. We'll be regularly posting blog posts there and more information about the project. There's an email address also, postckan@pitt.edu. We'd invite your recommendations for how we might continue to engage with this community. How would you like to stay informed? How would you like to be involved? Please feel free to, you know, offer some ideas here. If there's, if you'd be interested in following up with a conversation with the project team, we'd really invite the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, and I think like some of the first things you'll see is like, you know, helping us build a list of ecosystem players, helping us kind of document some of the processes through diagrams, and then, you know, we want to engage you in, you know, on a regular basis, and, you know, we'll do that through the website and GitHub.
Yeah. So I think that's we'll leave it there. I'm going to exit the full screen so I can see.
Oh, yeah, you're still sharing. So, okay, there we go.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. It was great. Now let's open the floor for a Q&A session. If anybody wants to ask something or share thoughts, feel free to do it.
Yeah, I would like to actually thank you very much. It's really incredible things that you are doing, and it looks like a start of something really big and promising. What is the next step? How do you understand in terms of maybe deadlines or fixed moments in time? So what would be the next say step in this process for you?
Yeah, I would say, and Joel helped me out in Nora too. Yeah, I think like probably through the rest of the year, just like engaging people, you know, in activities, not trying to set up conversations during the holidays and things like that would be the first goal. So like, build a list, help us diagram these things. You know, if somebody wants to have conversations with us, that's great. And then as we get into next year, you know, we might want to have, you know, some times on the schedule where we want to talk about a specific topic in the ecosystem. You know, we can advertise that, you know, discussions and workshops and things like that. Getting into the spring and summer, I think we're talking about the CKAN Con and kind of that sense making and sharing things back with people. And then writing up the plan over the summer is kind of where we want to be, so that we can get ready for phase 2 application opportunity when that comes. Did I get that right, Joel?
Oh, yeah, Bob. Okay. So yeah, and as you can see, there's a lot of overlap with the work we're doing, with the work you're doing, Alex. And of course, we don't want to duplicate a lot of the work. We want to leverage a lot of your work. And I'm sure a lot of the exploratory exercise will be syncing our efforts so we can really, you know, focus our efforts towards one direction. I think they're very complementary. So yeah, and one of the things that we want to do too is, being that this is an open source project, is also, you know, in the spirit of open source, also host a lot of these discussions and working in the open. As Bob mentioned and Nora mentioned, we'll be leveraging things like GitHub discussions to facilitate and advise people where we are, and so people have the opportunity to also, you know, contribute their perspective.
Yeah, and Alex, we'd love to engage you in that first stage of this work too, just kind of start to build on that. It's, you know,
sounds perfect. I'm sending invites to you over LinkedIn.
Okay,
cool.
Okay. Any other questions? Abraham, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to ask if with this, they will come an effort to triage issues and pull requests and stuff that accumulates in the repositories. I feel like that's something like very needed for new people to be onboarded quickly into the project, and that so that they can contribute. Like right now, there seems to be like a lot of noise, like very old issues and pull requests even that can be triaged and then like just have fresh stuff happening.
Yeah, I don't know if that, looking at kind of onboarding experiences and kind of the experience of contributions is something that we can explore, but I don't know if that's a question for Alex on this as well, or Stephen.
Yeah, I think it's a question that crosses over a group of people. So that conversation has happened in the past about clearing up GitHub issues and discussions and such. I think it needs a pretty coordinated and ongoing effort. So someone like Alex can be a part of that, but in terms of the history and the older discussions, it's a bit difficult for him to know what should be curated out, as it were. So I think it's something that would be on the radar, but if Alex is contributing from the point of view of onboarding people and improving communications, I think that's a good starting point. And then as he works more closely with the tech team, I think he can help with some of those aspects as well, cleaning up the GitHub discussion and issues and such. But I should say, we do want to get more dedicated people. So Link is currently sponsoring Alex and Brett Jones. And I'd like to think that we can get more dedicated people working just purely for CKAN as well.
May I continue the question just like because there's a silence in the room? Because at some point I myself wanted, and I still probably want to contribute more closely. I have to do my stuff, right? So I have to pay the bills, but I like this project, and what would be the process if it's ever possible to be part of this dedicated people?
I would say come along to the next CKAN office hours and see what we can talk about and what we can direct you at, for sure. And I think Adria and Ian and others would probably also put their hand up and with some ideas of things you could look at. Good for contribution issues and things like that. But it's largely a meritocracy. Like people contribute and then they just find themselves sort of in the group. If you're looking for sponsorship, then to be honest, the way Link Digital did it is I bumped into Brett and found him to be someone who had some really good skills that could be directed at the CKAN project, and that just sort of emerged. But it was very different for Alex, bringing him in as an interim product owner. I kind of had to sponsor that effort and run through this process since April to kind of really ground that role, as it were. For the next roles, I'd like to think we've already kind of seeded the effort to make those next roles more possible. So we've got the product strategy forming up. We've got a bit of a plan of how to implement the strategy, some ideas forming, and that should roll into more defined roles and resources that we need. And if not Link Digital, from my perspective, or Dartopian, it might be other firms that could sponsor that, or even government institutions, or funding that comes from grants. So that's not an answer, that's more of a meandering path around the answer.
And just to add to what Stephen mentioned, I think these problems are not unique to CKAN as an open source project. These are systemic open source issues that often, like the tragedy of the commons, you know. so yeah, so we're trying to figure out in this ecosystem study, how do we harmonize and pool resources, right? And that's why I have a big interest in the cohort listing, because a lot of the key stakeholders of CKAN are governments. So perhaps, you know, a lot of the efforts can be harmonized and aligned, so we can you know, accelerate the development of CKAN.
We have a question in the chat. It's connected with something else, but before that, just to mention that Hyan Kim, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correct, says to Bob and Eleanor that would be great to discuss in more detail, so you can reach them, reach the DataGov team at datagov@gsa.gov. So yeah, you can write that down. I'm
Yeah,
not sure
absolutely.
if it's a
We
good
wanna-
idea, but if you're proactively trying to reach out to people, maybe we can have some kind of a list where people will list their email so that it's easier for you to contact them, or something like that. I don't know if you
Yeah,
have
that's
a
gonna be what.
process for that. Mhm.
Yeah, we're gonna put that ecosystem list out. You know, it's probably going to be a spreadsheet, but just like list the people that are in the ecosystem. And if you wanted to share your email in that list with us, like that would be great. We'd love to be able to stay in touch and have
It should be
conversations
some
about
kind
all
of a
these things.
forum,
Yeah.
because you cannot share publicly emails.
Oh yeah,
but,
yeah. No,
you know.
I got you. Yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah. I think like a way for people to share it with us is what we'll set up.
Yeah, great. So there is a question from Mayan. If there is a recorded demo for the new releases of CKAN 2 that he could check. And yeah, I'm not sure how to answer to that.
Like a recorded demo of newly released features for what's coming up, like CKAN 2.10.
Yeah.
I would say no. I would say that there's a like a release log that is published as part of that release, or will be, I imagine. So that's about it. But if you go to the tech team calls, which are on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they're really friendly group of folks. I think you'll get the gist of what's going on with the project if you start attending a few of those.
Mm-hmm. Jasper, you can, yeah, straight go ahead if you'd like to add.
Yeah, I can tell it. Yeah, and you mentioned that it would be a good idea to synchronize the efforts, especially governments, put into the development of CKAN. We try to do that in Germany. However, we found it difficult to get our developments, additions, bug fixes upstream to the official repository. I don't know if our service providers, the federal states, they organize for the development. Maybe they don't have the connection to you, and so they call themselves CKAN experts. Of course, every company who wants to get a job from a government will call them CKAN expert, but I'm not sure if they are really connected to the core CKAN development, so they can get their changes into the upstream repositories.
I don't think I'd be able to speak to that, but you're probably right. I think there's I know personally there's a lot of work doing upstream commits. My company does a lot of work with lots of government agencies, and it doesn't mean the work that we do is useful to the CKAN core. It's more about being involved in the CKAN core, and then when your developers are involved in CKAN core, part of the cadence of that project and the supportability of the project, then you start to understand how you should be doing your work with customers and how you would be improving the repeatable deployment of that work to multiple customers over time. Because it's more like bringing upstream improvements in, it should be to sort of serve the full suite of CKAN users, not necessarily that one unique thing for one customer. So you kind of got to be involved in both ends, not just innovative work, but the boring and mundane and highly sustainable aspects of CKAN as well. I think Adria's probably got a much better answer there.
I just want to speak to the point of accepting contributions to upstream. I mean, we do love boring and mundane stuff, and any help on that regard is super greatly appreciated. We do have an issue, and I think it's no secret that there's an issue with like the backlog of pull requests and responding in a timely manner to reviews and stuff. But I think it's fair to say that we try to prioritize good external contributions, and by good I mean like they're fixing specific tasks, they're well tested, well documented, and they engage with the reviewer in a timely manner. So I don't think that, basically, I think in terms of being CKAN expert or no, I think that any provider that has like a standard experience with like submitting code on GitHub and contributing pull requests and stuff should be able to contribute to upstream. Again, yeah, we recognize that there's an issue with resourcing and like the time that we can spend reviewing stuff, and I'm very much looking forward to speak with Nora and Bob and Joel about some ideas that I have for that. But I would say that in principle, we're super open to any external contribution, especially if they're fixing specific issues with CKAN Core or some of the extensions. And maybe in the extensions, it's even more problematic because there's the responsibility and the maintenance is less clear than in CKAN Core. Basically, in principle, yes, we are very open to external contributions.
Go ahead, Ian.
We can hear you if you're talking, Ian.
Maybe you're on mute. Okay, maybe Joe, you can go ahead while Ian fixes his.
Yes, I just wanted to add to what Stephen and Adria mentioned. You know, some of the concepts we're exploring in making a more vibrant ecosystem. We're thinking of things like working groups, like maybe as one way so this cohorts can keep communicating or coordinating their common use cases. You know, like governments or nonprofits or, you know, people building data lakes, people building data registries, perhaps. So those conversations can happen, maybe not at the code level, but more at the requirements level. So that's one concept we're exploring. So yeah, and you know, so maybe that's one way, perhaps it can help. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me now? Okay, looks like my audio is working now.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo everything that Adria said. I think our community does a really good job of accepting, you know, good open source contributions. You know, when those people that come out are making the effort, and so I think the problem is maybe in finding those people that have a track record of working with the community, and maybe highlighting some of the work that they've contributed in the past, to try to lead people that are looking for contribution, or for somebody that they can hire that will see that work get back to the community, to see that they have that track record and see that they have you know, the ability to deliver on that. I think it's a really hard problem, like many of the things that we're talking about here. All of the integrating, you know, open source with communities and with all of the different desires is very, very difficult, and we've seen a lot of things that don't work that well. I mean, it seems that some vendors might be incentivizing, you know, numbers of pull requests or other types of things, and that kind of stuff doesn't work because, you know, it really needs the engagement. It really needs somebody that has the somebody that just knows how to work with an open source team, and that's hard to tell when you're sort of looking on the
reading the label on the tin to try to see if this company is the best one to work with. But I think everybody can certainly contribute and is welcome to. I think we do a pretty good job of that.
Thank you, Ian. Okay, we have 1 minute until the end, so talk now or that will be your last opportunity. If anybody wants to ask something or wants to share something, that's the right moment. The next right moment will be next year. So
I would like to share, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ivan. I'm for a long time building a CKAN-based project in post-Soviet countries like Russia, and right now in Armenia. It's so happened that I'm in the middle of civic data, data engineering in enterprises, and government projects too. And what I would like to say that there is a great growing ecosystem of enterprise data management. It moves incredibly fast, overwhelmingly fast. I never seen such rapid development of data-related tools. And right now they use about a dozen of new open source tools that happened last 3 years. And what I see that CKAN is a bit outdated. And there are a lot of changes in data management, like enterprise data catalogs, like enterprise data management systems that could be open source or closed source. It's not important, but they're growing. There is and existing data portals looks how to say, like full of junk, of piles of junk of data. It's not usable, and there's a missing link between CKAN community and data analytics and data science. It's an enormous missing link. I don't know how to solve it rapidly. Maybe some working group, maybe some involvement outside of CKAN ecosystem. But if it will not happen, CKAN will be a bit outdated a bit more. All that I proposed and what I see in the mirror map, it's very great. It's quite a lot of change, but maybe it's not enough. And maybe some other moves require it too, since I see lots of commercial projects in open data. They also a bit outside of enterprise movement. But I see that CKAN should be closer to the final end users. And all of them are data analysts. They could have different names. They could be researchers, journalists, so on, but they're all data analysts, and it's not yet close to its auditory. So I would like to suggest to focus on it and to work with auditory, to try to focus not on CKAN customers like governments, enterprises, non-profits. For example, I also have CKAN installations, but I think that much more important to focus on the users. Users will drive customers to implement, to ask for certain features. So, just an outside opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ivan. Your insights during the research was really, really cool, and it's a huge pile. When you see a really big list, it was from Ivan. It was really fruitful conversation. Thanks for the input. So, one thing I would add: whether you hear a strong opinion regarding a direction where CKAN should take, the only issue I have with this is that there are numerous of opinions like this. So their opinion, okay, CKAN should serve data analysts. The next one, the UI is outdated, the UI should be updated. Next one, we care only about API. Get us API logging, API tracking, and work on this more. Then the next one, we care about publishing experience because this is what we do on our job, and this is what our employees do. And these are only several directions. It's twice more, at least, of where CKAN can go. And so each direction to some extent cancels another one. So if people care about out-of-the-box solution and UI that CKAN delivers them right away, if this group cares about it, there is another group that doesn't care about UI at all, and they're using customized UI. And this is basically where the complexity happens. And the Miro board tries to explain that it's no one single point of view of where CKAN should go. This is quite, yeah, basically this is what I bring on the table. Although I'm highly for the idea that the software should serve the end user. And if end user is satisfied, it pulls up the demand for the soft. I think it's modern approach, and this is definitely the way that we should take. Yeah, thanks. A few cents from me.
Did Alex answer your question, Ivan? I'm not sure you're satisfied, but
Yeah. Tell you on.
Yes, I'm not really satisfied, to be honest. I would like to say I'm a big fan of CKAN. It's a great tool for a very long time. But still, I think it could be improved. Everything that you mentioned could be solved in a different ways. For example, the complexity of UI and backend. You could implement it as headless data management system, and to implement different UIs, you just need to very high quality documentation of an API and backend. There is such way for implementation. There is a lot of examples in modern data stack. I could suggest you to look at the modern data stack. We just reinvent how to work with data. And there are lots of efforts that could be done, for example, for development community. If you will have a very high quality plugin and add-on ecosystem, it will be possible to implement a lot of features using these plugins, these implementation. Whereas, for example, there is another example, biggest data community in the world, the DBT community, probably you know. There are lots of examples of products that implemented. For example, if right now we don't have data transformation engine inside the CKAN, you will have to use something around it to do it, and so on and so on and so on. So I think there is a lot of quite simple solutions for complex tasks, maybe wrong solutions, but they could work. I will be happy to help you anyway if I will have a chance.
I think you can contact Alex, for example, and then you can continue the conversation there, or you can contact the CKAN community in general. Yeah.
Thanks for this input, and that's constant. If you have several examples of what you like, aside of what we were talking about, or that we discussed before, just send them over. Hey, Alex, this stuff is incredible. This is what I love, and this is the link, and that would be quite helpful for me. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, so we massively overrun. I mean, massively, not so massively, but we overrun. So I'll be very quick, and I'll just tell you a few closing words. So if you want to present at CKAN Monthly Live, you can either fill out a form, or first of all, sorry, thanks to everyone for the great presentation. It was really nice. So thanks to Bob and to Alex and to Eleanor. I think we've identified many opportunities for contribution. So that will be very useful for people. I've put notes in the meeting notes document. So yeah, you can go in the document and you'll see all the contacts and useful links to presentation. Everything is there captured. So yeah. And now I can proceed to closing. So if you want to present at CKAN Monthly Live, you can fill out a form, which is in the presentation that I already sent and is also available in the meeting document, or you can write to me. If you want to contribute, like this meetup told you many ways how you can do it. Also, if you want to some other ideas, you can head to CKAN.org/community. There are various ways. It's good if we can stay connected. You can do that via Gitter. For example, we have a chat. It's pretty active, so if you have some problems, you can write there. If you want to discuss some things, you can use the discussions on GitHub. You can ask questions on Stack Overflow. And for security-related issues, you can email security@CKAN.org. As you know, we have social media accounts. We have Twitter. We have a new LinkedIn page, which needs some followers. So it will be good if you can follow us there. We do share some interesting stuff. So yeah, follow us. All right. I try to be as quick as possible. Let me see if I missed something in the chat. So the first thing that I see is Bob dropped a link to the Civic switchboard project that Nora himself and Liz worked on, and it's related to civic data and libraries. So I will add it to the meeting notes document. Okay, then we have a request from Dr. Jesper. Don't make CKAN too complex. Use it as a building block of a modular system. All right. Okay, and then we have Augusto, who's saying that a modular approach makes sense and CKAN has the extension system for a long time. While I agree that it's good to have a focus, some functionality needs to come out of the box. For example, if the CKAN API was just an extensions project that aggregate data from multiple portals, would not be viable. Yeah, okay, great. Thanks for sharing, guys, and thank you for participating in our CKAN Monthly Live. I'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for visiting.
Everyone.
It was nice to see you all.
Goodbye.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.